something that we do a lot in design of why we like white space, separating things so that this thing does something really well, this thing does something well, and they're separated so we don't have visual confusion of what we're supposed to do with each piece of the interface. And so we can see as it's starting to be constructed, pretty straightforward. Okay, so backyardigans game, and it's a little confusing. We've got two buttons right next to each other. Help, a help button for kid game. Don't have it, just skip it. This is even more so than a skip button. It will never get used. But we've got a nice right-facing green arrow. It's really obvious what I'm supposed to do. And a word that kids, even before they can really read, they can memorize, a go. We go through the game, and there's specific tasks that we're supposed to do. We get here, we're in this little Mars rover, and there's one thing we're supposed to do. So we come to this, and before we're even given any on-screen instructions, what do you think we're supposed to do? Jump. We're supposed to jump over this rock. We can't go under it, we can't go over it. It says, if you sit there for a couple seconds, it says, hit a space bar to jump over the rocks. I mean, it's not really very taxing, but it's teaching you, go over the rocks. This one, these meteors fall at this place where there's meteors on the ground. And this is a little odd because a kid doesn't really have a reference for watch out for falling things. Falling rain, that doesn't hurt you, but here what they do is when you get close to this, you get this shield thing that pops up. And you know, that's something we're all used to, of having roofs, something to keep other things away. And we get some visual, or some both visual and verbal feedback that if we do it right, yay, good job. If we did it wrong, it's like an ouch, and it pushes you back. So what's like an example of that we would use in interface design? You know, we fill in a form incorrectly, we don't have the right data in the field, we don't have it, you know, in the proper formatting, where we forget to complete something that's required. It tells us, you forgot to do this, but try to do it in a polite way that's easy to see, so the indicator is really close to where you made the error. And this is the only part of this game that I think is really, really bad for no real reason, is you get to this and there's these little craters. And you have to fill up the craters with this bubble gun. I don't understand what the point of that is, but this little guy walks out and shoots these bubbles into these craters and fills them up. So to complete this task, you have to fill up both craters with bubbles. If I do fill them both up, yay, I go along, but I get no visual indicator of my steps along the way. So once I fill up crater 1, I don't get a glow, a pop, or anything to signify that I've done it. It just keeps filling in bubbles for forever. I can sit there until I die and fill bubbles into this hole. So this is kind of similar to what we do on a form design, so that if somebody's submitting, we're deactivating the submit button so they don't think that the form hasn't been submitted and keep hitting submit. Are your users going to look down on the little status bar and see what server it's contacting? Never. So the 15 minutes in takeaway is build stuff that is easy to use, that you just know how to use it. If you give a dog something that has two ends, give it to two dogs, they will pull. Or if you hold it, they will take it and they will pull it. It's obvious of what it does. Okay, so I've got my prop portion of the show. Okay, so I'll hold this up, and we all do this with our kids too, of, oh, what's this thing? Okay, so what's this? Baseball. Okay, you said ball, right? It is a ball, but specifically it's a baseball. But saying ball is important, I think. Okay, so what do we have here? Tennis ball. Why is this a tennis ball? It's green. Okay, it's green, it's fuzzy, squishy, so it's got a lot of different attributes to it. It's the weight, whether it can bounce, what I can do with this. It's a lot different. Okay, so what happens when I get to this? Are these the same thing? No, well, maybe they look the same, they're fuzzy, but there's differences. They're green, this one squeaks. I can kind of bounce it. I wouldn't actually play a game of tennis with this. Okay, now let's get into, is this a tennis ball? No? Why not? It's too big. Okay, so it's too big, so by it being too big, I can't use it for the task it's supposed to be used for. And here, I've got a little tennis ball, and this one's almost exactly right. It's got like the right little patterns. It's a kind of the right ratio of weight, but I can't use it. So when she's encountering interfaces with the different buttons, she's starting to get tennis balls all the time. Go to the right, go to the right. And then we get into scenarios where it's an orange tennis ball or a pink tennis ball that she can use, and she has to take a second of, well, this shares many of the same characteristics, but can I use this the same? So there's a momentary pause of understanding, can this accomplish the task I want it to? And that's relatively simple for the interfaces I was showing. There's one button, there's two buttons, it's not very confusing, and I'm a very poor juggler. But what happens when we get into a scenario where you have more visual noise on the page? Not necessarily that it's moving, but what if you've got pictures, carousels, also, pictures of Paris Hilton, whatever it might be. It starts to get confusing of, well, what's the button that takes me to the story I want to go to, or what submits this form, or whatever it might be. So there's no real great analogy there. I'm just putting in visual noise. So as I'm trying to tell you, if you have to point, you've got three things in interface, which one's the tennis ball? It's here. But as you're adding new things, it becomes harder, and as you're farther away, it's probably really hard to pick up where the tennis ball is when there's a bunch of stuff real close to each other. I did way better at that than I was expecting. All right.